Norfolk Island, located in the Pacific Ocean between Australia and New Zealand, is of volcanic origin. Its geological formation dates back about 2 to 3 million years, when it emerged due to underwater volcanic activity. It is part of the Lord Howe volcanic ridge, a volcanic arc created by hotspot activity beneath the oceanic crust. These hotspots are areas where magma rises through the Earth's crust, forming volcanoes. In the case of Norfolk Island, this volcanic activity resulted in the formation of underwater volcanic cones. Over time, with successive layers of cooled and solidified lava, the volcano gradually rose above sea level, creating the island. Surrounding the island, coral reefs began to form, creating shallow lagoons. These reefs are living structures that thrive in the warm waters of tropical and subtropical regions. While the island itself is volcanic in origin, the coral reefs play a vital role in supporting local marine biodiversity and protecting the coastline. The island's soil is primarily composed of basalt, a dark volcanic rock formed from cooled lava. Erosion over time has created fertile soils, allowing for lush vegetation to grow, including the iconic Norfolk pine trees. Norfolk Island has a maritime-influenced humid subtropical climate with warm, humid summers and very mild, rainy winters. The highest recorded temperature is 28 degrees Celsius on January 23, 2024, whilst the lowest is 6 degrees Celsius on July 29, 1953. Norfolk Island was uninhabited when first settled by Europeans, but evidence of earlier habitation was obvious. Archaeological investigation suggests that in the 13th or 14th century the island was settled by East Polynesian seafarers, either from the Kermadec Islands north of mainland New Zealand, or from the North Island of New Zealand. However, both Polynesian and Melanesian artifacts have been found, so it is possible that people from New Caledonia, relatively close to the north, also reached Norfolk Island. Human occupation must have ceased at least a few hundred years before Europeans arrived in the late 18th century. Ultimately, the relative isolation of the island, and its poor horticultural environment, were not favorable to long-term settlement. As a relatively small and isolated oceanic island, Norfolk has few land birds but a high degree of endemicity among them. Norfolk Island is home to a radiation of about 40 endemic snail species. Many of the endemic bird species and subspecies have become extinct as a result of massive clearance of the island's native vegetation of subtropical rainforest for agriculture, hunting, and persecution as agricultural pests. The birds have also suffered from the introduction of mammals such as rats, cats, foxes, pigs and goats, as well as from introduced competitors such as common blackbirds and crimson rosellas. Although the island is politically part of Australia, many of Norfolk Island's native birds show affinities to those of neighbouring New Zealand. Strelbleriza was a monotypic genus of legumes in the family Fabaceae. The species became extinct in 1860 in its native habitat, but the plant was known to have been cultivated. An appeal was made in 2007 to discover the plant in historic gardens. The species was declared extinct worldwide in 1998. On Norfolk Island, several species of snails have gone extinct, primarily due to habitat loss, invasive species, and environmental changes. Among them, Posticobia norfolkensis, a freshwater snail, is notable. These extinctions highlight the vulnerability of isolated island ecosystems, where unique species are often highly sensitive to external threats and ecological disruptions. The Norfolk Island rail is described as a flightless brown rail with a white breast and stripes running down its body. The illustration from the album of watercolor drawings of Australian natural history is thought to represent this bird. It was hunted by falcons and owls, which likely played a part in its extinction. It is thought to have been herbivorous and to wade through water. It likely went extinct around 1800 after the illustration was created, but may have become extinct long before. Norfolk ground dove was endemic to Norfolk Island, but became extinct due to introduced predators, disappearing within a few decades after European settlement in the late 18th century. There are no preserved specimens, and the majority of unambiguous information about the species comes from the single illustration made by John Hunter for the book collection of 100 original watercolors of birds, flowers, fishes, and natives done during 1788 to 1790 in New South Wales, with the description, Dove, Norfolk Island. The abundance of the Norfolk pigeon at the time of the island settlement is unknown. Early records indicate the presence of the bird, but do not contain any information on its numbers. Based on the behavior of the other subspecies, it is likely that the bird relied upon fruiting plants for food. Its extinction was caused by a combination of the introduction of cats and weasels, habitat destruction by human settlers, and direct hunting by humans. The Europeans took up the bird as a food source. An officer of the penal colony there recorded the species as still quite common in 1838, with his journals mentioning his successful hunting of 72 birds. The last sighting occurred in 1901. The Norfolk starling was 20 centimeters long. It was generally grayish-brown. The reasons for its extinction are unclear. Competition from introduced European starlings, song thrushes, and common blackbirds, overhunting, and habitat loss through agricultural clearing might have played important roles. Reports in older literature that it was driven to extinction by rats like its relative from Lord Howe Island are incorrect, because rats did not become a pest on Norfolk Island until 1940, while the last living record of a Norfolk starling is from 1923. Little is known of the Norfolk kaka's biology. It was said to have lived both on the ground and in tall trees, feeding on flowering shrubs and trees. The Polynesians, who lived on the island for some time before the arrival of the Europeans, hunted the kaka for food before disappearing from the island around the 1600s. It was also hunted for food and trapped as a pet after the arrival of the first settlers in 1788. The species population suffered heavily after a penal colony was maintained from 1788 to 1814, and again from 1825 to 1854. The species likely became extinct in the wild in the early 19th century, sometime during the period of the Second Penal Colony. It was not recorded by Ensign Abel Best on either Norfolk or Phillip Island in his 1839 diary entries. As Best collected specimens for ornithology, including the Norfolk parakeet, it is hard to accept that he would not have documented this much more attractive quarry, had the kaka still been present. The last bird in captivity died in London in 1851. The Norfolk triller was similar to other subspecies of the long-tailed triller, though it was slightly larger and had a richer buff wash on the underparts and rump and a broader white tip to the outer rectrices. Breeding was recorded in September, with eggs in December and February. Nests were shallow and cup-shaped, made of lichen, moss, and fibrous roots, and lined with finer material. Despite being recorded as abundant in 1941, the triller was last recorded in 1942. The cause of its extinction was probably predation by black rats combined with clearance of its habitat, Norfolk Island's native subtropical rainforest. The Norfolk thrush was mainly dark brown in color, with a pale gray-brown head and upper breast. It was about 21 centimeters in length and a weight of 55 grams. It had a yellow bill, orbital ring, and legs. Males and females were similar in size and appearance. The subspecies foraged mainly on the ground, in leaf litter, for small invertebrates, seeds, and fallen fruit. They became extinct around the late 70s, with the last confirmed record in 1975. The cause of its extinction is attributed to a combination of clearing of native vegetation and predation by rats and feral cats. Additional factors were competition with introduced song thrushes and common blackbirds, as well as by interbreeding with the latter species producing sterile offspring. The coral species near Norfolk Island are part of subtropical reef ecosystems, featuring both hard and soft corals adapted to cooler waters. Notably, genus like Acropora and Turbinaria can be found, which thrive in the unique conditions around the island. These corals contribute to a rich marine biodiversity, providing habitat for fish, invertebrates, and sea turtles. However, like many reef systems, they face threats from ocean warming and human activity, making conservation efforts crucial in this region. As an apex predator positioned at the highest level of the trophic web, the dusky shark is generally less abundant than other sharks that share its range. It is a generalist that takes a wide variety of prey from all levels of the water column, though it favors hunting near the bottom. Sandbar shark is distinguishable by its very high first dorsal fin and interdorsal ridge. It is one of the largest coastal sharks in the world, and is closely related to the dusky shark. Its longevity is typically around 40 years. Very few, if any, attacks are attributed to sandbar sharks. As a result, they are considered one of the safest sharks to swim with and are popular sharks for aquaria. The tiger shark is a solitary, mostly nocturnal hunter. It is notable for having the widest food spectrum of all sharks. It also has a reputation as a garbage eater, consuming a variety of inedible, man-made objects that linger in its stomach. Its name derives from the dark stripes down its body, which resemble a tiger's pattern, but fade as the shark matures. Generally nocturnal, the round ribbon-tail ray can be solitary or gregarious, and is an active predator of small, benthic mollusks, crustaceans and fishes. It is aplacental viviparous, with the embryos sustained by yolk, and later histotroph secreted by the mother. Up to 7 pups are born at a time. Although not aggressive, if provoked it will defend itself with its venomous tail spine, and it has been responsible for at least 1 fatality. The short-finned eel is a species of freshwater eel native to rivers, lakes, and estuaries in Australia, New Zealand, and nearby islands. Recognizable by its smooth, elongated body and relatively short fins, this eel is well adapted to diverse aquatic environments. They are carnivorous and ferocious predator. The chevron butterfly fish has a relatively elongate pale body marked with dark vertical chevron markings. It is a territorial species which occurs in semi-protected seaward and shallow lagoon reefs, closely associated with tabular and staghorn corals, the polyps and mucus of which they eat. They occur at depths ranging from 2 to 30 meters. Doubleheader wrasse is a species of wrasse found in the subtropical reefs of eastern Australia. Recognized by its distinctive large head and vibrant blue and green coloration. It inhabits rocky and coral reef environments, where it feeds on hard-shelled invertebrates like crustaceans and mollusks. It is relatively rare and valued for its ecological role in controlling invertebrate populations, but it is vulnerable to habitat degradation and changes in reef ecosystems. The saddletail grouper grows to 2 meters in length and at least 68 kilograms in weight. The species is a generalized carnivore, preying on crustaceans and fish. It has a typical grouper appearance. Coloration varies from a dark gray-black color to the more usual blotched or banded black and white pattern. The big belly seahorse is one of the largest seahorse species. It is easily recognized by its robust body and pronounced belly, reaching up to 35 centimeters in length. It inhabits kelp forests, seagrass beds, and sheltered reefs, where it feeds on small crustaceans and plankton. Known for its monogamous pairs and unique reproductive behavior, the male carries and births the young in a brood pouch. While relatively resilient, it faces pressures from habitat destruction and the aquarium trade. Orange-spotted filefish absorb and use chemicals in the acropora coral they eat to take on its smell, which cloaks them from natural predators like cod. In addition to this trait, not observed among other vertebrates, they also use visual camouflage. Hawksbill sea turtle is a critically endangered species of turtle found in tropical coral reefs worldwide. Known for its distinctive, overlapping scales on a vibrant, patterned shell, it plays an essential ecological role by helping to maintain healthy coral reefs, often feeding on sponges that can otherwise overwhelm coral populations. They are recognized by their narrow, pointed beak, adapted for reaching into crevices in the coral. Unfortunately, this species faces severe threats from illegal poaching for its shell, habitat loss, and climate change, making conservation vital for its survival. Green sea turtle is a large, herbivorous sea turtle found in tropical and subtropical seas around the world. Recognizable by its smooth, heart-shaped shell and paddle-like flippers, it also plays a vital ecological role, especially in maintaining healthy seagrass beds. Unlike other sea turtles, adults primarily feed on seagrasses and algae, which helps prevent overgrowth and supports marine biodiversity. Though they are widely distributed, they are endangered due to threats like poaching, habitat loss, plastic pollution and climate change. The preferred natural habitats of the Gunther's Island gecko are forest and rocky areas. It is terrestrial, arboreal and saxicolous, rock-dwelling. It is oviparous. Each adult female lays a single egg, in a communal oviposition site, which may be in a root system, a rock crevice or a cave. Despite its name, the Lord Howe Island skink population is uncommon to be found on Lord Howe Island. However, the majority of their population is located on the Norfolk Island complex. This skink is metallic bronze in color and has flecks for defining features. The species is protected and considered vulnerable under the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act 1999. The white tern is notable for laying its egg on bare thin branches in a small fork or depression without a nest. This behavior is unusual for terns, which generally nest on the ground, and even the related tree-nesting black knotted constructs a nest. It is thought that the reason for the absence of nests is the reduction in nest parasites, which in some colonial seabirds can cause the abandonment of an entire colony. It is a long-lived bird, having been recorded living for 42 years. The white-necked petrel is a solitary pelagic gadfly petrel of the open seas of the southwest Pacific. It has an effortless graceful flight with few wing beats, and does not follow ships. It feeds on the wing, picking fish and squid from near the surface. Its natural habitats are subtropical or tropical seasonally wet or flooded lowland grassland and open seas. It is threatened by habitat loss on its breeding grounds. One of the smallest petrels, Cook's petrel, is typically 30 centimeters in length with a 65 centimeters wingspan and a weight of around 200 grams. Its coloration is typical of gadfly petrels, pale gray upperparts with a dark gray M on the wings and white underparts. The species was formerly more numerous. The current population estimate is 1-2 million and declining. Gould's petrel is a small seabird found in the southwest Pacific, particularly around islands off eastern Australia. Recognizable by its striking white underwings and black-tipped wings, this petrel is highly adapted to a pelagic lifestyle, spending much of its life at sea and returning to land only to breed. Unfortunately, this species is vulnerable to habitat disturbance and introduced predators like rats and cats. Shy albatross is a large seabird native to the southern oceans. Recognizable by its pale head, dark-tipped wings, and striking yellowish bill, it is a powerful flyer, gliding effortlessly over vast distances in search of squid, fish, and crustaceans. While it has a relatively stable population, it faces threats from bycatch in longline fisheries, habitat degradation, and climate change, prompting conservation efforts to protect its breeding sites and reduce bycatch. Chatham albatrosses are normally silent, but will emit a harsh buzzing bray when threatened and also during courtship. Besides the sound, they will put on a courtship display which includes fanning of the tail, mutual jousting of bills, and grunting. They produce a stomach oil made up of wax esters and triglycerides that is stored in the proventriculus. This is used against predators as well as an energy-rich food source for chicks and for the adults during their long flights. Masked booby is a large seabird found in tropical and subtropical oceanic regions worldwide. Recognizable by its bright white body, black-tipped wings, and distinctive black facial mask, it is known for its impressive diving ability, plunging from heights to catch fish and squid near the ocean surface. It nests on isolated islands and sandy beaches, typically laying 2 eggs but often raising only 1 chick. It alternates between gliding and active flying with strong periodic wing beats. It is often encountered alone, or in a small group when returning to its colony. Sharp-tailed sandpipers forage on the edge of wetlands, intertidal mudflats, either on sand or bare wet mud and in shallow water. They will also forage among inundated vegetation of grass, sedges, or salt marsh. After rain they can be found in paddocks of short grass, well away from water. At low tides they can be found on the intertidal mudflats, before moving inland to freshwater wetlands at the high tide. Occasionally they forage on dry or wet mats of algae, among rotting seaweed or seagrass on beaches, edges of stony wetlands and exposed reefs. The red knot is a migratory shorebird known for one of the longest migration journeys in the animal kingdom, traveling up to 15,000 kilometers between breeding grounds in the Arctic and wintering sites as far south as South America, Africa, and Australia. This species is highly sensitive to habitat loss and changes in food availability along its migration routes, with some populations experiencing significant declines, making conservation of critical stopover sites essential for its survival. Redneck stints are highly gregarious and will form flocks with other small calidrous waders, such as sharp-tailed sandpipers and curlew sandpipers in their non-breeding areas. Their breeding habitat is tundra. They nest on the ground and breed from spring to summer. They forage in wet grassland and soft mud, mainly picking up food by sight. In their non-breeding habitat, they feed on intertidal mudflats and along the muddy margins of freshwater lakes. The Australian golden whistler is a species of bird found in forest, woodland, mallee, mangrove, and scrub in Australia. Most populations are resident, but some in southeastern Australia migrate north during the winter. Its taxonomy is highly complex and remains a matter of dispute, with some authorities including as many as 59 subspecies of the golden whistler, while others treat several of these as separate species. Norfolk Island hosts a variety of endemic plant species. These plants have evolved in isolation due to the island's remote location in the South Pacific, far from other landmasses. Over millions of years, this geographical separation has allowed unique species to develop independently, adapting to the island's specific climatic and ecological conditions. The isolation has created a distinct flora, but it also makes these plants vulnerable to invasive species, habitat loss, and environmental changes, as they lack the natural defenses found in more biodiverse regions. Conservation efforts are critical to protect this rare and isolated plant life. The Norfolk Island pine is an iconic conifer native to Norfolk Island. Known for its tall, symmetrical shape and layered branches, it can reach impressive heights of up to 65 meters in its natural habitat. While it resembles other pine trees, it's actually part of an ancient plant lineage, the Araucariaceae family, dating back to the time of the dinosaurs. It is well adapted to coastal environments and has become a popular ornamental tree worldwide. However, in its native range, the species is considered vulnerable due to habitat loss and the pressures of invasive species, making its conservation important for maintaining Norfolk Island's unique biodiversity. Plantago hedlei is a perennial herb. Plants of this plantain are large with large leaves, up to 9 veins, wide petioles, and long spikes with dozens of flowers and fruits with up to 5 seeds. Cheesy woods are trees and shrubs growing to 2 to 30 meters tall. The leaves are spirally arranged or whorled, simple, with an entire or waved margin. Copperosma boweri is an endangered shrub species. Convict artist John Duty drew this species in 1792, its first record. He noted it grew only where exposed to the sea and was seldom taller than 4 meters. Wickstroemia australis is erect and broom-like and grows to at least 4 meters tall. Its flowers are tubular and greenish-yellow. It is often found in forests, ridges and canopy gaps. Marita latifolia grows as a single-trunk tree reaching 5 to 6 meters tall. Convicts apparently use the large leaves to wrap up dough to bake in ashes. Penantia are small to medium, sometimes multi-trunk trees. Leaves are alternate, leathery, and with entire or sometimes toothed margins. Inflorescences are terminal and flowers are functionally unisexual. The species are more or less dioecious. Friosinacea have been found growing in tropical forests, coastal forests, humid mountain forests and associated biomes, from sea level to mountains cloud forests. Little is known of the ecology of popwood, other than it is threatened by competition from wheat species. It is a very rare shrub. It occurs in a few scattered locations. Norfolk mallow was first recorded on Norfolk and Phillip Islands in the early 1800s but was thought extinct by 1912 due to grazing animals. Following rabbit control on Phillip Island in the 80s, seedlings were rediscovered, and the plant now regenerates naturally on Phillip Island and is propagated on Norfolk Island, though it remains critically endangered. Clematis is composed of mostly vigorous, woody, climbing vines. The woody stems are quite fragile until several years old. Leaves are opposite and divided into leaflets and leaf stalks that twist and curl around supporting structures to anchor the plant as it climbs. Caparis leaves are simple, entire, and rarely reduced. Flowers are bisexual, bracteates, axillary or superaxillary, solitary or in rows, in racemes or umbels. Calistegia affinis is a thin-stemmed plant which climbs by twining. The flowers are axillary, solitary, pink with 5 cream longitudinal bands and are funnel-shaped. Dwarf cane orchid has crowded, yellowish-green pseudobulbs, dark green leaves and 2 or 3 cream-colored to whitish or greenish flowers which often do not open fully. It grows on trees and rocks on one mountain on Norfolk Island. Ungeria is a tree that can grow up to 15 meters tall. It has leaves which are broadly elliptic or obovate and evergreen. The genus is monotypic. The Phillip Island hibiscus is endemic to Phillip Island, where only 2 small clumps of a single genotype exist naturally. While it has been widely propagated horticulturally, this has not increased genetic diversity, and the species remains critically endangered. Norfolk Island has many endemic snail species due to its long isolation, unique climate, and diverse habitats, which allowed these species to evolve independently over time. The island's humid, subtropical environment, combined with dense vegetation and limited migration opportunities, created ideal conditions for snails to specialize and adapt to local conditions, resulting in high levels of endemism among snail populations. Snails likely arrived on Norfolk Island through natural means, such as being carried by floating debris, pieces of wood, or even by the wind as small eggs or juveniles. These passive dispersal methods are common for many island species, and once established in the island's isolated and diverse environment, the snails were able to evolve and adapt to specific niches, resulting in a high variety of endemic species. Phillip Island centipede can grow up to 23 centimeters and is known for its habit of preying on vertebrates. It is theorized that the centipede was able to enter this ecological niche due to the absence of endemic mammalian predators on the island. Paratia is distinguished from all other decapod shrimps by the specialized form of the first 2 pairs of chelipes, which possess clusters of brushing setae or small hairs to pick up food. Norfolk hibiscus moth is similar in appearance to the New Zealand species Archirota, however can be distinguished as the labial pulpus and cosmea is colored fuscus black to the top of the underside of the second segment. Norfolk Island is home to several endemic species of Orthoptera, including crickets and grasshoppers, which have evolved in isolation due to the island's unique environment. Various grasshopper species that exhibit distinct adaptations to the island's subtropical climate and diverse habitats. These insects play essential roles in the ecosystem, contributing to nutrient cycling and serving as food for other wildlife. However, their populations are vulnerable to habitat loss and the introduction of invasive species, making conservation efforts critical to preserving these unique Orthoptera species. Lamprema anea has size of 3 cm for males and 2-5 cm for females. It has color variations such as dark bronze and blue and green as its typical color. Due to the destruction of its natural habitat, it became rare in the wild. The Norfolk Island became only endemic stag beetle. Ocosternus are typically characterized by their elongated bodies and long antennae, which can be several times longer than their bodies. This is a common trait among longhorn beetles. Shore eels are small, eel-like fishes with narrow tapering bodies and small heads. Dipulus fish generally have elongated, cylindrical bodies with a tapered snout. Their coloration often includes shades of brown or gray, which helps them blend into their sandy habitats. Eviota fish are mainly associated with coral reefs. Many of these fish are short-lived, with life cycles as brief as 3.5 weeks in the tropics. Some species are hermaphrodites and some representatives live symbiotically among the tentacles of the mushroom coral. Norfolk Island blenny is known for its territorial behavior. Males often establish and defend territories within their habitat, displaying aggressive behaviors towards intruders. They are also curious and can often be seen peeking out from crevices and rocks. It primarily feeds on algae, small invertebrates, and organic detritus. Its diet contributes to controlling algal growth on rocky substrates and coral reefs. As a solitary bird, the Norfolk boobook is known for its haunting, mournful call, which can be heard at night. It is a skilled hunter, using its keen eyesight and hearing to locate prey in the darkness. Its plumage is typically mottled brown and cream, providing effective camouflage against the bark of trees and foliage. Once a common species, the Norfolk parakeet had dwindled to under 50 birds by the late 70s. Factors contributing to its decline include habitat loss, particularly of large old trees with suitable hollows for breeding, killing of eggs and young by rats and cats, shooting by early settlers, and competition for nest sites by introduced crimson rosellas and common starlings. In 1983, a captive breeding program was commenced. Although it was not successful, it sparked interest in the bird's fate in the people of Norfolk Island. The Norfolk gerygone is a species of bird in the family Acanthizidae. Its natural habitats are subtropical or tropical moist lowland forests, subtropical or tropical moist shrubland, and pastureland. It is threatened by habitat loss. After a period of decline during the 60s and 70s, the population of the Norfolk golden whistler was estimated in 2005 at 535 breeding pairs. Ongoing threats include habitat degradation and predation by black rats and feral cats. It is considered vulnerable because of the restricted size of the population and area of its distribution. The Norfolk Island robin is easily recognizable by its bright red breast and distinctive blackish-brown back. Males and females are similar in appearance, although females tend to have slightly duller coloration. It can often be found in both native forests and plantations on the island. This species is known for its inquisitive nature and is often seen hopping around on the forest floor. The Norfolk robin is relatively tame and can approach humans, making it a popular sight for visitors. The white-chested white-eye, reaching lengths of 14 centimeters, is one of the largest white-eye birds, characterized by its pale green head, olive green neck and white throat and belly, with a distinctive white-eye ring. Endemic to a small forested area around Mount Pitt on Norfolk Island, this bird has faced severe population declines due to habitat destruction and invasive species, leading to its near extinction, with no confirmed sightings since 1980 despite conservation efforts like the establishment of the Norfolk Island National Park. The slender-billed white-eye measures approximately 12 centimeters in length. It is primarily found in the subtropical forests and woodlands of Norfolk Island, where it prefers areas with dense foliage. Known for its social nature, it often forages in small flocks, flitting through the trees in search of food. Its inquisitive behavior makes it a popular sight among birdwatchers. It is classified as vulnerable due to habitat loss, the introduction of invasive species, and competition from other bird species. Conservation efforts are focused on habitat protection and restoration.